Blacks in technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome everybody to this is actually Founders Hour. This is Blacks in Technology Founders Hour. This is number 2. We did a Founders Hour, I think, back in December. So now we're back with Founders Hour number 2. So welcome to the show. My name is Greg Greenlee. I am the founder of Blacks in Technology and also your host for this evening, along with my co-host, Jewel Sparks, and I'll let Jewel speak here in a second. You can check us out at www.blackintechnology.net. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at blackintechnology. That's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. Check us out on Facebook. We are at facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. We also have a LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology. And if you are, listening to this podcast, you can tweet your questions to us at Big Tech Talk. That's hashtag Big Tech Talk or hashtag Founders Hour. And that's BITTECHTALK and Founders Hour, FOUNDERSHOUR. So who is Blacks in Technology? Blacks in Technology is the tech-focused community and media organization. We're focused on increasing diversity in technology. Our mission is to increase visibility, participation, and change the perception of people of African descent in technology through community-focused events, activities, and media. Blacks in Technology is stomping the divide by establishing a blueprint of world-class technical excellence and innovation by providing resources, guidance, and issuing a challenge to our members to surpass the high mark and establish new standards of global innovation via mind-sharing and collaboration efforts. BIT is always focused on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist our members with their continued professional growth and development. So if you'd like to partner with us, you can send us an email to partnerships@blacksintechnology.net. And if you have any general inquiries, you can send an email to info@blacksintechnology.net. A couple of things I want to mention before I hand this over to Jewel is FaucetCon. FaucetCon is the free and open source software conference that's going to be held September 11th through the 13th at the Rosen Plaza Hotel in Orlando, Florida. And what's so great about FaucetCon, not only is it the first FaucetCon of it being held, but also one of our BIT members, Brian Smith, is actually the founder and the organizer of the conference, which is it's pretty big. We don't have many people of African descent giving these technical conferences or organizing and founding, so it's good to see that Brian is doing his work there in Orlando. So if you have a chance to check it out, it's not much. He purposely made the price or the price to attend very low so that everybody can be able to attend. I think it's maybe $20 to go to this conference, and there's going to be some great keynote speakers there. There's going to be a lot of he has quite a few high-name vendors like Red Hat and some others as sponsors. So it sounds like it's going to be a pretty fantastic event. He's also really focused on diversity there. So there are a lot of women speakers. There's a lot of minority speakers. So check that out. FaucetCon 2014, September 11th through the 13th in Orlando, Florida. Also, PuppetCon, that's going to be going on in San Francisco, California, September 20th through the 24th. It's a 5-day event. The first 3 days is actually training and teaching people the Puppet management tool. And then the last 2 days are keynote talks, demos, certification testing. So that's PuppetCon 2014 happening September 20th through the 24th. We also have a special announcement about PuppetCon coming up soon. It's going to be a contest where I think we're going to be giving away some free passes to PuppetCon. So stay tuned for that. Also, we still have our monthly tech line system, and we're looking for people from our community to submit blog topics and write blogs focused on the topics they find useful for the day-to-day execution of their jobs, a systems engineer or technology professional. So if you'd like to contribute to our blog, provide Techline solutions to our membership. Send us an email to Techline, that's TECHLINE, at blocksandtechnology.net. And I'm going to hand this over to Jewel. How are you doing today, Jewel?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Greg?
Doing pretty well.
That's
Not
good.
bad.
That's good. I'm very excited to bring to our community our first Founders Hour actually for 2014, because over the next 6 months, we're going to highlight various founders and tell their stories and how they're impacting the lives of others in their communities, as well as the things that they're doing to stop the digital divide. So I'm very excited to be bringing this program to our community with you. So without further ado, I actually would like to take time to introduce our first founder that we are focusing on in 2014. That's Dr. Lanise Block. Dr. Lanise Block has been an educator for about 17 years, and she is the founder of the Digital Empowerment Academy, which is a digital literacy initiative that seeks to enable teens to become savvy creators of technology as well as users. So youth in the Digital Empowerment Academy, they learn to use digital devices, applications, and coding as a tool to engage in digital kinship. So today we're going to hear a little bit more about Dr. Lanise Block and also what digital kinship is and how she's impacting her community. So Dr. Lanise Block, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you. Good morning, Jewel and Greg. I'm so honored to be here today.
We're happy to have you, for sure.
Yeah. So tell us, Lanise, we always like to, start off with, a pretty common question, which is give us your background in technology and how you got started.
Okay, well, I'm kind of on like a non-traditional track. I am a social studies teacher, and I got into technology kind of in a by the way kind of manner. I kind of was using some things from early, instructional technology in my classroom, and what I discovered is that students were much more likely to do assignments or participate if they had an opportunity to use some sort of digital mechanism to get their work done. Like I would give people, my students asking to write like the traditional 5-paragraph essay, position paper about, some issue, and some of them just wouldn't do it, but if I, indicated that they could do a PowerPoint or a website, then they would do the assignment. So initially, it became like a tool of engagement with my students in my class, and the more and more I used, trying to insert things, the more and more the results I got. So I kind of got hooked. I earned a learning technology certificate early on. I think it was in 2003. That really focused on instructional technology, and then through the practice of my dissertation, I focused on the digital divide. During that process, I earned an e-learning certificate, and I also was technology integration specialist for a local district. So that's kind of how I got into technology and still is a part of ways, the thing I use to connect with young people.
That's excellent. Just tell us a little bit more about you were mentioning the e-learning certificate, and you were a digital integration specialist. Tell us what that entails.
So the e-learning certificate is basically when you kind of learn about instructional design and how to design learning in a digital or like web-based programming, and not programming, web-based mechanisms and applications to get your need across. So you have to figure out what is the content that needs to be taught, and then how will the user experience help facilitate that learning. Kind of sometimes absent of like physical or face-to-face contact. And so that's kind of what that process is, learning about how to effectively do that is what e-learning is about. And then the technology integration specialist, mostly my job was to help teachers incorporate technology into their classrooms. So there's many facets to that. So sometimes one thing I had to do was try to get our system, because it was like the first time they had this role, and so I had to get a lot of infrastructure systems in place, and then encourage teachers to, I met with new teachers and have them help them figure out what will be the best thing for them to try to get technology into their classroom.
That's pretty interesting. It's kind of hard to believe that in 2014 that our classrooms wouldn't be already well equipped with some of the latest technologies in order to help students. But it's good to see that someone like you is taking the initiative to get involved and actually help initiate and integrate technologies into the classroom. So that's pretty
and I had that position a little bit ago, like probably about 8 years ago. But those positions still exist. And also the case is that the technology or the structure is there, but our teachers need time to figure out how to use it and what's the best way. And so that's kind of what the role does.
Right.
Gotcha.
And so if the structure is there and sometimes the teachers need time, what are you seeing right now in that area? I mean, what are some of the laps in terms of teachers being able to incorporate these technologies in their classrooms right now?
Right. It's all about like shifting the paradigm. And so, the idea that the 21st century learning and teaching and learning takes a different form. And so the idea that the teacher is not the holder of all knowledge, but rather the guide to help process and contextualize knowledge is one thing. Uh-huh. And so as teachers start to move more in those arenas, the digital world helps facilitate that. The impediment sometimes is that teachers are very committed to the way they have been doing things and more nervous about doing things in a new way. And so that's kind of the biggest, not the biggest problem, but that's one of the major issues. And they need sometimes support that is not always forthcoming to help figure out how to manage these different systems at the same time, teach 150 kids, all that kind of thing. So it's just a lot of pieces to the puzzle that have to be in place to make a successful experience.
Mm-hmm. That probably then explains a little bit why you decided to form the Digital Empowerment Academy. Could you tell us a little bit more about what the Digital Empowerment Academy is to you and what inspired you, other than obviously some of the points that we just brought up, to begin and start this organization to bridge the gap between learning and students via the digital age here?
Right. So the Digital Empowerment Academy is kind of a response to the need in the community. As part of my work dissertation, I researched the digital divide and was able to see, also, my own classroom, my students who I worked in predominantly in environment that was predominantly students of color and low income. And so I would ask them to do things like me turning something via hyperlink, and they wouldn't know what I was talking about. So I had to show them that, and so kind of knew these things already as I started this other path. And so just when I work with community, I found that the same thing was true. And so I wanted to figure out a way to kind of respond to that and provide some of the digital learning that is essential, right? It's essential in this new age. I often call it the new civil rights movement. We need digital citizenship almost in the same way that we needed voter registration, in days gone by. And so it's something that I felt very committed to and wanting to be a part of the solution and not only part of the problem. And then, selfishly, I have a new role now, and I'm not I don't have my own classroom. And so I wanted to still interact with students and youth. So I kind of created that also to make sure that I get that, I keep myself exposed to their energy and their inspiration.
That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty. What's funny is that you're. I think you're the second person to mention the civil rights movement and equate that to what the work that a lot of organizations and yourself and Blacks in Technology is doing as well. I just had a discussion with one of my friends earlier. It was about a week ago, and he was stating that what we're doing, what Blacks in Technology and a lot of these organizations are doing is akin to the equal or civil rights movement. And I thought it was pretty, pretty incredible to put those two things in the same sentence, actually. So I definitely agree with that.
Right. A lot of the civic engagement. Go ahead.
Oh, well, go ahead, Lanise. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of civic engagement that power structures are happening online and in digital spaces, and if we are not there in those spaces, and we are not putting forth content and controlling what's said about and done with us, then that's why I make that connection, because the power structure, it should shift, right? As we kind of sometimes are chasing it's running very fast away from us, and so we have to make sure that we are aware of where the new morphings are taking place.
That's true. And then if we look and listen to the news, like all the news that came out has been coming out recently about all the top companies like the Facebooks, the Googles, the LinkedIn, and the Salesforce, and just like the numbers that are low within their organizations in terms of leaders that are part of this like digital evolution. And then even we have Jesse Jackson getting involved with this now. I think he did like a press conference with USA Today, and he was stating last week how he feels also that the government plays a role in making sure that there's a shift and that there's not this divide, because he feels that that the talent is there. I mean, there's really no need for us to constantly look outside of the U.S. for talent when we have talent that's here, that's available. The opportunities are what's missing. The opportunities for our community, to minimize that divide. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in that area, and it's definitely being, compared to fighting for, instead of fighting to get into school or to vote, now we're fighting to make sure that you can find us and put us in the jobs that are there, that exist, that we're qualified to do. So all this stuff is really amazing and exciting.
Yeah, I think that one of the key things also, and it's worth mentioning, is that Dr. Lanise touched on, was the fact that she wanted to be a solution, and what she's doing is taking action, and that is a very important thing to remember. Is that even with the civil rights movement, it wasn't done, it wasn't accomplished with just talking. It was accomplished through action, and that's what I like to see when we have organizations like Digital Empowerment Academy and other organizations like Black Girls Code and Code 2040 and a slew of other ones doing their due diligence in order to stomp this divide and actually create some change. So kudos to you. So, tell us a little bit about the program. How many kids have gone through the program? What's the program like? What type of things are you doing on?
Okay, so far we've had about 35 kids come through the program. We've been in existence about 2 years. And we'd like to expand that over. I would like to have a lot of kids, thousands involved. We meet on Saturdays, face to face, and on Saturdays, and for 2-hour sessions somewhere in the community. Particularly, I focus on North Minneapolis, and we teach the kids to be digital creators in a variety of ways. So we focus on this model called digital kinship, and we have the young people kind of decide or select a issue that is reflective in their community. And I tell them, the community can mean lots of things. It can be geographical, it can be, ideology, it can be, orientation, lots of different ways you can identify community, racial. And so to pick a community you want to identify with, and then think about something that you want to either illuminate that you're doing very well, or that you feel like it's not, that your community is struggling with, and you want to change your impact and move in a different direction. And then once they select this kind of topic or idea, they are charged with the duration of the program to be researching about that issue, and then be creating what are called digital artifacts. What I'm calling them, digital artifacts, to be presented at a community conference. We have a digital empowerment youth conference each year, and the scholars, as I call them, that come from Digital Empowerment Academy, are there. They are the presenters. The focus is on them, and so they share what they have learned and what they want, how they want their vision for the community. They share that at our culminating event, which is the conference. But all during that process, we meet probably. Over this past time, we've met for 4 months, a duration of 4 months, every other Saturday, and like that.
Okay.
So when was the last digital empowerment youth conference? Like when did you and also if you had a dream, when would you like to hold this? Would it be like every 6 months? Would it be once a year? Tell me a little bit about that.
So our last one was this past June 7th. We had a conference on June 7th, and we had the one before June as well. And my vision, I would like to have a yearly conference, and it just continues to grow with more people involved. I'm trying each time to get not only my scholars, but other youth who may be involved with either activism in some way or digital, knowledge, and try to get more people involved, more community members, more stakeholders, more parents to come out and really support the youth and wrap them out, because they are, they're the experts, this phrase, they are the digital natives, we are the digital immigrants, so we actually really need them to, as with everything, right, to sustain our future, sustain our communities. And so absolutely engaging them, putting them in leadership positions as the expert, changing that kind of view. And so I would like to, this year I'm going to try it. I'm always about, I'm a risk taker. Sometimes that gets me into trouble, but every once in a while I stumble on something good. and so I'm going to try to do some sort of streaming version of it, so that people who are not physically there can participate in also. So I'm gonna try that, and I have some ideas about how I want to make that happen. So that's gonna be the 3.0 version of the conference. Well, I'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted, because we'd like to support you in any way that we can, for sure. I know the Minneapolis, I don't really know a lot about the tech climate in Minneapolis. Maybe that's something you can share with us too, because I think just because you're in Minneapolis, that doesn't mean that people all over should know what you're doing, and that you can't potentially tap into other resources like mentors and things like that to support your program and the children that are part of your program. Because that's the wonderful thing about everything going digital and being like in technology, because it's allowing people to minimize barriers and people to connect in ways that they haven't been able to connect before. So if you could like maybe share a little bit about like Minneapolis, the environment that's there, and some of the pros about being there, and maybe some of the cons. So maybe we as a community can maybe together come up with ways to help support you and what you're doing and help fill in some of those gaps, so people know more about your program, as well as we can help you provide resources for those children whose lives you're impacting.
Yeah, and so Minneapolis, has always been, a space of innovation, and we, in general, right, all of the reports and the magazines, and it's a really great place to live. The standard of living is good, and all those things. Where Prince was from, I didn't know that, that kind of thing. However, like in many communities in our country, we have a lot of disparity between the affluent, whites, and then the low-income people of color in general. And that is evident in we have different neighborhoods. So North Minneapolis is where I focus my work, because that's the area that is having experienced a dearth of technology resources and technology support. And so this case in point, there's a major cable company that is laying fiber optic cables all over Minneapolis. The city is contracted with them, except North Minneapolis. And so asking, the power structures that meeting with the CIO, like why is this being allowed, and there's all these kind of things. But that's just an example of what we're encountering. Like the city of Minneapolis did a technology survey, and they indicated that looking at the distribution of high-level users across communities, and they list some communities that had very high users, which are the affluent communities. And then while it says near north, Phillips and Camden had the most non-users. So we've had that indication. Also, another point that is made was only 65% of the African-American respondents have a computer in their home, compared to 90% of whites. Again, another point, among the residents with children in the household who reported race in the survey, whites are far more likely to have access at home, 95%, compared to people of color at 73%. And so there's just these statistics represent the disparity and why it's a focus. And so as I go forth to try and get to establish a digital apartment academy and find space to make this happen and to get kids involved, all that kind of thing. I've encountered a lot of macro and micro, challenges that, need to be overcome. So again, one of the macro challenges is that it was very hard to find a space that has Wi-Fi, wireless internet, enough to host, several students, 25 students in one room, doing, working on iMovie. And so that was, a major challenge is lots of congestion because it's not as much infrastructure, right, in the city to make, to have those things happen. Now, we had our Digital Apartment Academy. We hosted it there. Like I said, we were hosted at a local building, a new structure. It was called the Youth Enrichment Center. This was newly constructed in our community, like maybe about 5 years ago. What is the irony is that the Wi-Fi there is not and does not have the capability for us to successfully run our sessions as we would have liked. One time we had to have a low-tech version where we just had a discussion. And so those are just some of the challenges and some of the consequences that happen when you have a community that has such disparity. Because nationally, I looked up a national survey of how technology and digitalness, right, for the nation, and Minnesota is very high. This is linked to our achievement gap status as well. But the students who are white in Minnesota are doing very well. But we have achievement rates, you guys, Jewel and Greg, that are lower than Mississippi in Minnesota.
Wow.
And so these are just the disparities that we're dealing with in this environment.
Wow. And you touched on a couple of points. One is, just the access to a computer in the household. I mean, we all know that has a big impact on just being exposed to technology, and early exposure is definitely key. So that's something that we hope that we can start working on and trying to get, the youth exposed. And I'm glad that, that's why, organizations such as yours are so important, because early exposure is important. And if we don't get these kids exposed to technology and what they can do as creators early enough, then they're never going to know, right? Or they're going to learn later in life, so.
Right. So I was at another meeting, and the guy, the CIO, I guess had done is run all these positions. And it was like we'd be based on the hardware and access that is available in particularly North Minneapolis, with the number of people that are there and the number of computers we have available, like public computers we have available in like the libraries, the parks, and schools that are open in the evening or out of school time, and the people who reported having service in their home in North Minneapolis, there's only 1 hour of available computer access per person for a week, for a whole week. Right. And so that's the statistical analysis they did. So part of what the Digital Empowerment Academy does is we let the students have a digital device to use, to take back and forth, so they can have ubiquitous access for the duration of the program. I would love to be able to let students just keep them. If I had the funds to do that, I would. Turn them back in at the end, but we hand them out when they join. And go through some orientation, and we say, okay, this is really your device to go back to school. You can take it home, share it with, your friends, your parents, your I was they say, well, what can my little sister play with? I was like, if you're sitting right next to them, I would encourage you to show them some things and let them do some things on the devices as well. We've used iPads in the past, and so that's kind of the point, just like you said, because research bears out that they need to have this access, this ubiquitous access, to be able to explore and to create. One of the things we did in part of the Digital Empowerment Academy, we teach various applications, and we also have introduced this pastime, some coding, and so we introduced Scratch, this like rudimentary block, drag and drop Scratch programming, and it was a program directly related to kids. And so we had like a group of cadre of girls, right, who really were into it. And so they did the session, and it was really fun. And it went through all our exercises. We had planned this 3-hour thing that was going to be really intense. They completed all the stuff in like 15 minutes, and then we were like, okay, go explore. So these girls became, like by the next session we had, they found another app on their iPad called Hopscotch, and they were the experts in that. So they would tell all the kids, okay, this is what you can do, and this is what look what we made. And so having the access to that at home helps facilitate that versus always just having it in a controlled environment. Because here in our system in Minneapolis, people can only use the public library for an hour unless someone is, and if no one is waiting, then they can stay longer. But someone is always waiting, and so it's very limited what's available to the young people.
Wow, and I'll let Jill take this next question, but I know that there's, and this kind of pertains to the question coming up, but I know that there's a couple of big technology companies that are in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. One of them is Nagios. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. The gentleman that runs that is Ethan Gostad. He's the founder of Nagios. And I went to a Nagios World Conference probably a couple of years ago in St. Paul. It's a big conference. Nagios is like a monitoring, infrastructure monitoring solution that's used by just about everybody in the industry. Helps to monitor like your applications, helps to monitor your network infrastructure and things like that. But they're a pretty big company, and I think they're out of St. Paul. And there's another, I can't remember the name. I'll have to get you the name of it. There's another company that pretty much does similar to what the company where I work at now. They're sort of like a service provider. They do email, web hosting, but they're pretty big in that area as well. Just wondering if you what type of support are you getting from local businesses?
Well, my grant I was really got for the past 2 times I got a grant in varying amounts from Minneapolis Public Schools. We had an equity and diversity office, and they kind of gave their offers of seed money for this idea, this concept, and then also been able to get Best Buy actually sponsored our conference this past time, and so helping out with that, like getting the actual monitor. But we also have some partnerships with another organization called So Savvy, and they provided additional hardware and also a lot of volunteer support. And so so that's kind of the support we've got so far. This is the season. I mean, now, like, this is summertime, and we're not running. We finished it, and now we're not running, and now I'm hoping to launch again in November, and kind of seeking different. I'm following up on various leads to try to engage more communities and see if anyone else would like to help sponsor or fund this idea. Mostly needing, like a some space, and then hardware for the kids, internet access both for Wi-Fi while we're doing our sessions, and then also during. For the kids to have, when as they move about, those kinds of things. We provide the kids with the lunch, right? We're in a low-income community, so we provide students with those kinds of, make sure that's a part of what we do. Just, basic, needs, taking care of those things. We often, we went on a couple of field trips, went to the Apple store. They were very gracious to us. They taught us like iMovie, and it was a free session, right? On a Saturday with, all the kids, and they were so excited. And like, even if we had invited parents to be a part, there was a parent there, and he was like, wow, this is great. And so, trying to, just create more opportunities like that. I'm trying to implement again this time, a mentoring aspect, where students can have an opportunity to interact with an adult professional to help exchange some cultural capital, right, that we need. So oftentimes people who are low income, don't have the networking system set up that people who are more affluent have to move their life along, right? So I'm hoping to all the things that I have the kids I feel like need, right? I'm a very organic sort of teacher, and when I feel identify that my students or my young people, my youth have a need, I want to do my best to try and fill it. And the things that I also know they need to have for the future as this world is changing and working, all the 21st century skills that are more about critical thinking than just basic knowledge. And so trying to help put those things in. I recently went to a workshop about human-centered design, and that's like, my latest thing. I just love that idea. So I'm going to try and incorporate some of that into my program next year as well. So There's lots of ways people can support. I've had volunteers come on Saturdays and just offer, a one-to-one connection with the students while they're working through something or thinking about their project, or because they're doing this presentation. So having someone to kind of practice with and go over it and say, what did you think about that? Well, okay, let's add this, or let's move this thing over here. Having those kinds of things I've had people just kind of go and pick up lunch for us and bring it. So lots of the community is in a lot of ways kind of wrap themselves around us. The parents come and support us at the conference. A lot of them are really involved, and they come to every session and check in how are things going and what's coming up next. And so I really love that aspect of it as well. We can still use more support. The more support I get, the more students I can have involved.
Gotcha. Excellent. Jill, did you want to mention?
I guess one thing, it definitely seems that you have support, like local support and government support. One resource or other resources that I would suggest is that if you want to start your program up back in November, is that maybe you look at some of these corporate entities that are now, due to all the news that's out in terms of their lack of diversity within their leadership teams, like Google. They're providing a lot of support to organizations and entrepreneurs who have programs such as yours throughout the country. I mean, also they have Google Chromebooks. I know there's a few organizations who have been able to receive those, as well as potentially, maybe you said resources like books and things like that. I know that we have. Greg can speak more to this, but I know that we have a strategic partnership and collaboration with a couple of publishing companies that publish books specifically on coding and things like that. And Greg can tell you more. And we definitely would like to support you in regards to that. And then within our network, as I mentioned before, I mean, it is national, and there's a lot of technology professionals that are part of our network that also could potentially provide mentoring. And a lot of these individuals work for organizations as well. So one thing is we should share your story a little bit more. So maybe there could be a call to action of people who want to support what you're doing, or maybe they can, sometimes since you're a nonprofit, if people want to donate towards what you're doing, their companies sometimes match as well. So I would really personally want to make sure that we try to support you the best way that we can, because you're also in a region that's not always talked about. And because of that, I think you're in a great strategic position to form partnerships with all these big organizations that are located on the coast. I think that what you're doing is something that's very attractive to them. So,
wow, that was wonderful. I certainly appreciate that and all the help that I'm giving, because especially actually the diversity said they're not going to fund me again. So definitely trying to figure out what's the best strategic way to move forward. With a lot less resources than I've had in the past. But while at the same time wanting to grow the program, right? So like I told you, I'm a risk taker, and so I want to follow up on all the leads and the offers that come my way. Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that.
No problem. I just want to, touch on what Joel was talking about as far as the getting books. We formed a partnership with O'Reilly Media, and they're pretty big, or one of the biggest technology publishing companies. They do technology conferences as well as videos, tutorials, and they also publish books. And through our partnership, we're able to obtain technology-related books from them. As a matter of fact, I just did a meetup, a Black Technology meetup here in Cincinnati, where I handed out, a bunch of different books that cover a variety of topics, from Linux to Arduinos and Raspberry Pis to programming. So I know you mentioned using Scratch, and I know for sure the last batch of books that they sent me, there's some books in there on Scratch programming language. So just to have be able to give something to the students so that they can continue what they're learning, even when they're not in a session would be helpful. So we'll definitely connect offline and arrange something so that we can help out in that way.
Super. Thank you so much. That would be tremendously helpful. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Definitely. So Digital Empowerment Academy focuses on teens being creators. So can you give us a couple of, success stories, a couple of stories that kind of come to mind to you that, you were really, really, really proud of, something that the students did or something that the students created?
Right, and so we kind of we give them like we call like a menu of different ways they can be creators. And kind of our ideal is to give them a lot of exposure, and then they have opportunities to find the one that resonates with them, and then kind of go deeper and become an expert on it, and kind of help us co-lead sessions often. So like we teach kids, we taught kids to use iMovie. Like I mentioned before, Apple Store helped us out with that, and they made movies about bully prevention and the need for technology in schools. We taught them presentation apps, various kinds, and they created digital multimedia presentations about global exploitation and how we can work to end injustice around the world. We talked to an app inventor from MIT, how to make apps with Android apps, and they made apps about Black history that they felt was lacking in the educational system. We have them, again, look at what is the issue and how. And we also have taken through the process of trying to figure out what is the best tool to project their particular message. So that's part of what we, 21st Century Thinking, we kind of have them do. But for success, I believe, is our kind of repeat attendees. We had 2 cohorts. In the second cohort, we had at least 5 of the students return and bring somebody. Like one girl brought her 3 sisters with her for the second one. And so having the students, we feel like this is a valuable experience, and having them return and bring even more people with them. The second time, we've seen over the course of the sessions, and this is, one of the reasons I really love teaching is you see growth in young people. So one guy was kindly how he was saying, anytime he spoke up, unless I particularly called on him, and by the end of the session, he was up helping the other scholars leading in the session. He completed his exercise, and I was like, okay, Jonathan, could you help me circulate and work with the other kids? He was like, oh, okay. So, and he was so by the end, he was a leader, and so having them who, especially some of the guys who are like awkward, and the girls, I had one of the girls who came up to the we were doing a practice, the presentations, and she looked at me. I said, "Okay, it's your turn." And she was like, "Oh, if I start talking, I'm just gonna cry." So I was like, "Well, I'll stand next." She said, "Oh, that won't help." And so by the end of the session, she was like leading. She was the main talker, and so those are the things I feel like successor kids want to do. And they want to learn more, and they want to do more, and they are seeing themselves as members of the community who can make a change. And to me, that's most important, because the applications will change, right? We'll get every week there's new apps coming out, or new better ways to do things. What I want to affect is how students know that this digital world is out there, and that they have a right and really a duty to be a part of it, and that they should use their knowledge, whatever it is, their powers for good, right, not for evil, that they should see themselves as members of the community who can make a change, who should demand change and expect change, and being part of the solution. That's kind of, and so I feel like that's happened with many of the students, and having them grow in these micro ways that then are portrayed in macro ways in our community.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful, because as we touched on earlier, I mean, just the exposure alone is going to be key in helping to stop the digital divide. But being able for the kids to be able to envision themselves as creators and move on further from that in their lives is huge. And I'm glad, your organization is definitely making the steps and changes to do that. So that's excellent.
That's amazing, yeah.
So as a founder, I'm pretty sure that you had to deal with, unplanned issues, things that come up, spur of the moment. Tell our audience about, a particular issue that you had, and what they can do as entrepreneurs and as founders to help overcome them.
Right. So one issue that I had that I wasn't actually expecting was, as I was trying to recruit my students, my scholars, to be part of the program, is that some of the parents didn't feel like it was valuable or relevant or useful. They thought, the kids is playing games, and that's not necessary because we are, as a community, overly occupied, preoccupied with the achievement gap, which only really measures reading and math, and they're not focusing. We as a community, as actually I feel like a nation, are not really focusing on 21st century skills that are needed for the students to have. And digital, applications, digital involvement is just a means to an end, right? It's a tool for the purpose. And so, trying to convince parents and community people that this was essential, right? And so this is so that's kind of how I came to the idea of this is part of the new civil rights act. So I had to use that language to get people to even pay attention to me and try to okay, what are you talking about again? You want my kid to do what? And so I had to tailor my message, particularly my marketing, to get people to understand first that this is an issue. This is something that they should be a part of. Like I think, I would say, this is more important than sending your kid to basketball camp, hoping that they become an NBA player. What is really like to do that. And so trying to have walk that delicate line, because I'm also a member of the community, can't just come and say whatever I want. I have to, see you by the grocery store. So just trying to make that, people understand that in a very delicate but effective way was one of the challenges. So I had to come back by my particular marketing. And then, as I mentioned before, another aspect was this whole infrastructure, in Minneapolis. Even though you feel like it's there, it's when you dig deeper, pull back the layers, you realize there's lots of missing pieces. So one thing I established was what's called a Northside Digital Innovation Alliance, where other community organizations particularly North Minneapolis, or have an interest in North Minneapolis, we come and are talking about what are the ways we can impact, what are the ways we can, for instance, demand that the city demand that the community, that this cable company lay the fiber optic cables in North Minneapolis also. There's a library in our community that has statistics to show that it is the most used computer lab in our whole city, but it also has the least amount of computers. Right? Why is that? That doesn't make any sense at all. So this is part of our alliance, is to try and uncover these macro, micro things and to move it along. And so one of the things I've learned as a kind of an entrepreneur is kind of to help is to create stakeholders and help people buy into the idea of what is essential, and also help other people's ideas come to the fore. All of us are smarter than one of us. And so that's one of my tenets of my life. And so just wanting to have get more people involved, raise the awareness, and ignite, action. We call ourselves, our motto is advocacy and action. We don't want to sit in a room, air-conditioned room, right, in the summer and talk about this. We want, what are our initiatives? What are our actionable items? What are our quantifiable goals? So that's one of the kind of a project that I had to establish, kind of almost on the side to help my digital empowerment academy be vibrant and continue to grow, because if I don't handle these other issues, I don't address these other things as well, it will stagnate, and I'll run into real and virtual roadblocks, right? And so being agile to kind of identify the problem and then think of, a different way, and maybe adding something that you didn't anticipate you'd have to work on to meet your goal is one of the things I've learned as part of this process.
Wow.
I think, real quick, Joe, before you
jump in,
respond, there are a few things that you touched on that I think is great and and good advice for entrepreneurs. One of the things that you were speaking on, which involved the parents, right, and a lot of people, they don't understand that this is not just a problem for this generation, right? This is more of a systemic problem that we have to overcome as well, because some of our parents didn't come up in this age and they don't know what the value is of technology. So one thing that you mentioned, I kind of put into my own terms is you have to show the value in your product or service, right? And that's something that's important for entrepreneurs to remember, that if nobody wants your product or service, you can't show value in it, then nobody's going to use it, right? So that's definitely one of the things. The other part of it is that you mentioned infrastructure, right, and making sure that it's there to support what your goals are too. You mentioned creating stakeholders and creating these metrics, these quantifiable goals, and allowing the people to be able to see that in order for them to be believers really in what you're doing, right? And then being agile, identifying the problems, and then creating solutions. So I think those are all important points that you made.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's also about trust. I mean, if you look at the generation gap too, and maybe some of the parents of the children, there's been such a history, like in the community and even politics, like, just trust is an issue. So trusting all these new digital tools and technology. I mean, I know even now my mom is still like, why are you putting everything on your computer? Or just because you have email, are you still writing down everything? What is going to happen? So, I mean, if I'm dealing with it, I know everybody else is dealing with the same thing. And I even think about, like, I worked in like corporate America forever, like as a biologist, and now I like help companies and businesses. But even now, every time I talk to her, she's like, when are you going to get like a real job, something that's not focused on technology? Why don't you just go back and go back to Procter and Gamble or whatever? You had such a great job. It was all about security and kind of punching the time clock. And so when I talked to her about this technology stuff, she's like, yeah, that's kind of good, but what if it fails? And I think it's really like a thin line. Like the future lies in making sure that there's that balance. There's that balance of like trusting kind of this new infrastructure and system that's being put in place due to like this whole like digital evolution, as well as something that our communities are so known to believe, which is like believe in ourselves and know that if something's going to get done, we have to do it. But it's really a balance of like using these like kind of old systems, like my mom's like, make sure you write down everything, or make sure you talk to people. Don't just send emails, but still at the same time putting in adding this technology to the mix. And I think that as a community and as a group of people, we're that future. And so that's also why I think it's important for organizations to make sure that they have us on their leadership teams, or when people are putting together conferences, making sure we're in the audience, making sure we're on stage, kind of like even announcing or pitching our companies, because the world is changing. Consumers are changing. Dynamics are changing. And you have to be able to engage with your different communities. And if you look at the Hispanic population and the African-American population, constantly growing. And if you don't have resources out there that people can relate to, it's like this major divide. It's not just a digital divide. It's like a universal divide about across everything.
Right, and the Republicans found that out loud and clear at the last presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, and so
hopefully everybody's out there is offended. But I think that's true. If you are not relevant to all the communities, then you're going to be rapidly irrelevant, and trying to figure out ways to connect, and having young people. It's really a new way of thinking, right? And one of the reasons I'm so drawn to having coding be a part of the Digital Empowerment Academy is that I saw that it's not necessarily that we want to provide. There was a campaign I was watching that said not necessarily we want to provide, create thousands and millions of coders, although those jobs are out there and people are needed, but also it's a way of thinking. And so how to approach things, it's ways to adapt and to change. And absolutely, I agree with you, Jewel, as our community continues along the continuum, as we move further from our period of when we were enslaved and trying to get further and further away from that, even ideology, not just time-wise. How do we make those changes? And it's keep growing. I see the movements. Like when I have very young sons, they're 6 and 7, and I'm already talking to them about college, and they're like, well, why are we going outside? And I tell you, when I was growing up, my mom would say, so you can get a good job. But I tell my son, so that you can start your own business or your own organization. Right. I want them to be thinking about, so you can invent something. That's why you need to go. And so I just want them to have a change, the idea of what is the purpose of us, and what are the ways we should and absolutely could be involved in this world in a different way than we've been in the past. And so I feel like technology, digital involvement is again a means to that, to our involvement in the 21st century, world, learning, ways of being, thinking, operating, creating, ideating. All of those things are part of where this world is going, and we absolutely need to be there, at that point.
That's great. I mean, that's great. I need to bridge the gap between you and my mom, so you can say, now this is what parents are saying in today's time. So it's just this continuum also within our communities of people that kind of see the impact and the difference, and then they educate. I mean, then we're really on to something. So I mean, what you're doing is really great, and I'm gonna close this out actually by asking you if you had any words of advice to give the other founders of organizations who are trying to empower their communities the way you are, and the children of the future, and who are the future. What are some of those words? What would you know? What would you write? What advice would you give them?
I would say you have an idea, form it. Like, the idea people have now with design, prototype it, think about it, prototype it, and then do it. Do the prototype, and then collect feedback, and then, try it again. Like, all this doesn't have people, I feel like, I have so many conversations, people get stuck with it. It has to be perfect to start out. We have to figure out all the answers and answer all the questions even before you begin. In general, that's not, how I often operate. And so the people get caught and stuck, I think, in a place of just having the idea. I would tell anybody who wants to interact with digital technology, and especially when you're interacting with young people, get the idea and go for it and just start it. And the kids kind of will come along. I know I would go, when I was still in the classroom, I would go to workshops and like, I see something, a new technical thing. I say, I'm coming back to my class. This is what I saw, and this is what I think you're doing. Like in 2 or 5 to 10 minutes. And I say, okay, this is this, and so let's get started and let's try it all together. And by the end of whatever class, like a 55-minute class period, without a doubt, you guys, I promise you, there was a kid that had mastered it and was taking it further. Like, Ms. Block, you can do this with it. And this is what you can work. And they would say, okay, come up here and show everybody. And so that's part of the process. Young people are so adept, they're so agile, in ways that we, often forget and have been kind of, corporized out of us, right? and so that's the one thing I would say is definitely, get the idea, get started, see how it works. It doesn't have to be perfect, and especially if you're transforming parent kids. I was like, I just tried this. I'm trying. This is my first time, and we're gonna figure this out together. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And also, I would say, try to get stakeholders and parents, most particularly involved, and also help the students and everybody feel like they have to be like leaders and involved, like and listen to like input, opinions, ideas. All of that. Like, make room for everybody at the table. If somebody's like, I want to do this, but I can't come, all the whole time, all of a sudden, well, then come do this part. I need this. Would you be willing to help with that? Or what would you like to, to contribute? Those kinds of things. Just making room for everybody at the table, because as research says, a child can never have too many people in their life who care about them. And so the more people that are there, that we bolster our micro villages, around children, the better off they will be, and also the better off we'll be.
That's excellent. And I just want to let you know that that's straight out of Silicon Valley playbook. I mean, just get an idea, build it, and launch it, and get it out there quick, and get feedback, and iterate on your idea, and make gradual improvements. So that's definitely a great bit of advice. And I want to go ahead and thank you, Dr. Lanise, for joining us on our Founders Hour. And anytime that anything that you need, just let us know, and we'll definitely try to accommodate you. I also want to go ahead and offer, for us to do a write-up on Digital Empowerment Academy, so that we can get the word out that way as well. Once we get offline, I want to, get with you and talk about doing maybe a blog post or something like that, so that
for sure.
The people who are in the Minneapolis area, or who are not in the Minneapolis area, if they want to help out, then they know how to reach and contact you. I just
want to say also, just so follow us our social media. We have a Twitter, which is Digi MPLS, Digi Minneapolis, and then also have a Facebook page. We have our website, digitalempowermentacademy.org. Okay. So So be a part of our digital. We have a YouTube channel as well. We have videos of the conference and some very other things on there too. So definitely encourage people to get involved with our digital, our social media. And if you have questions or want to connect or other resources or just questions, like you have this idea out there somewhere and you want to, just have to talk to somebody about it. I would love to be of service to the Blacks in Technology, both specifically and in general.
We would love that as well.
Hey, Joe, you have any last words?
No, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I mean, speaking with you was a joy. You're really passionate about what you're doing, and I know because your passion basically empowers and fuels not just the endeavor that you've chosen, but also the communities in which you live and which you breathe. So, just thank you very much for your time and sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And then right before we get off here, I want to mention in 2 weeks, we're going to be speaking with Brian Smith from FaucetCon. So he's going to be a guest on our Bit Tech Talk. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be August 14th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And that's it for this podcast. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.